Kabamba on capital accumulation and the emergence of a new power elite in South Africa and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Just a few quick words of introduction. For those of you unfamiliar with the Wilson Center, it was established by an act of Congress in 1968 and is the nation's living memorial to President Woodrow Wilson. As a distinguished scholar, the only American president with a doctorate, Wilson felt strongly that the scholar and the policymaker were engaged in a common enterprise. I think this morning's discussion will really underscore that. Aiming to bridge the gap between the world of ideas and policy, the Wilson Center is a nonpartisan institute for advanced study in a neutral forum for open, serious, and informed dialogue. Patience Kabamba is an Africanist Doctoral Fellow at the Woodrow Wilson Center. He's a PhD candidate as well in the Department of Anthropology at Columbia University. He received his MA in Anthropology at Columbia University, a Master's in Development Studies and Philosophy at the University of Natal, Durban, South Africa, and a BA in Philosophy from the Centre Sèvres, Jesuit College of Philosophy in Paris. He's been an instructor at Columbia University, an assistant researcher at the Social Science Research Center in Johannesburg, mission in Eastern Congo, and a UNDP research assistant and consultant on the issue of proliferation of small arms in the DRC. I think we have a very fascinating topic. I'm really impressed to see such a crowd this morning. I think Patience will speak for about half an hour, and that should give us plenty of time for discussion afterwards. So, Patience, I hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you for coming to this conversation. It's really an ongoing conversation about the development in Africa. First of all, I would like to thank the center, the Woodrow Wilson Center, for hosting me this summer, and especially the African program. I want to thank Justine. We work together. It's really a shared work. I'll present here. I want also to thank particularly Howard, who is in Burundi now, the director of our African program, Doreen, Rosaline, and Natalie for their support in the program. My subject is about the creation of economic elites in South Africa and in the DRC. Students of industrialization of Germany, and especially Japan, as well as more recent studies of the Asian tigers and the so-called newly industrialized countries, have shown that capitalism has often, but not always, proceeded through and with the creation of close ties between the state and the business elite. So it can certainly be argued that the interpenetration of the state and capital is an essential element of capitalist industrialization. Best known for his studies of development in Brazil, Peter Evans, on which I will base my theoretical demonstration, believes that the question to ask about the state intervention in the economy today is not how much state involvement, but what kind of state involvement. So the state involvement is a given, but now what kind of involvement? In a predatory state is one where there is a plenty of involvement of the wrong kind, where private interests systematically loot a state that has systematic ability to extract wealth from natural resource. So for Evans, the model of developmental state is one where bureaucratic apparatus are embedded in a series of social ties that bound the state to society and provides institutionalized channels for the negotiation and renegotiation of goals and policies. So Evans here have two kind of state. The predatory state, where the state exactly just extract, just loot, and the ideal is the developmental state. And His studies was based in Brazil, and but for Evans, it's not only this interpenetration, but also the kind of elite you have. And he refers to the Weberian bureaucracy. He said, okay, the bureaucracy in the Weberian project is a kind of group of people who have mostly studied together, classmates, and who are kind of isolated from nepotism or traditional loyalties. So they are kind of autonomous from the society. They are not related in the sense that they depend on traditional loyalty or nepotism. So Peter Evans based his theoretical model of state on the interpenetration between the state and economy, but with an elite which is autonomous. But it's an autonomy which is actually at the same time embedded in the society. So these are two elements. Embeddedness, this bureaucracy knows what is going on in society. They have tired with people in society. In the same time, they are autonomous in the sense that they form a kind of corporate because they have studied together, because they were selected by the criterion of efficiency. So these are two elements I want to look at and try to apply them to the new elites we have in the case of black economic empowerment policy in South Africa. And in a very special case I studied for my PhD called the Nande in Eastern Congo. So my point will be, is there a wrong kind of state involvement in the policy of black economic empowerment? That's my interrogation about South Africa. And I want to apply Evans' theory on the Nande growing new elite, new economic elite in destroyed DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. About the Nande is an ethnic group of about 5 million in general, who is located in northeastern Congo. Yeah, northeast on the border with Uganda. And I spent more or less 2 years there in a city called Butembo, which is the center for the Nande. And what struck me actually is that, as we all know, the last 10 years, Congo have gone through a kind of collapse of public authority and the disintegration of what could be called a formal state, with all the consequences, 4 million dead and many people displaced, and a lot of suffering. And in 1998, we had 6 different armies fighting within the Congo. And even after 98, we have around 12 rebel groups trying to control part of Congo. So there were the sense of monopoly of violence, means nothing, because we had dozens now of Congolese rebels as well as foreign rebels in the Congo trying to control a peace. So it's a complete disintegration, not only of the state, but most importantly of the coercive power. So each rebel group have organized itself. So in this nightmare, this complete chaos, there is this group of people where I found a couple of dozens of millionaires in US dollars during the last 10 years. So my question was, what's going on here? So when I arrived in Butembo in 2005, it was striking because all around, Butembo is located in the Beni, the Beni territory. So you could find it. So the whole area on the north, that's what I studied, it's occupied by the Nande. The striking thing is that in the south you have a place called Rutshuru. Rutshuru is now where the group called FDLR, the former Hutu militia who were involved in '94 genocide, have found safe haven there. And it's kind of uncontrolled even by the quote-unquote DRC state. So it's a very troubled region, especially in 2005 when I was there. In Masisi, there is this dissident general called Kunda with more than I think they said 2,000 soldiers loyal to him. So he controlled the area. And Ruchuru and Walikali, sorry. In Walikali, you have this fighting between the Tutsi who were displaced there and the Hunde who were living there before. So there is a big ethnic fighting within. So all around Butembo, in the north you have, in Oriental Province, you have Ituri. Ituri, some of you who are familiar with the situation in Congo. Ituri was the place where we have a lot of massacre of two ethnic groups, Hema and Lendu. So when I went there in Butembo, all around people were fighting, except this axis of Butembo, Beni. So what was going on? Plus, so it was not only peaceful, but it was, the trade was booming during this period. What is traded there? In Butembo, you have gold. The traders just mine gold and they cross to Uganda, they go to Dubai, Hong Kong, Taiwan, they sell gold, and they come back. That's what's very interesting. They come back with containers of goods ranging from cars, clothes, and all the stuff they could sell home. So they were still investing in the Congo while all around people were fighting. But what explained this situation is that the Nande have been actually left out since the colonization, because when the Congo was colonized, the most important part, which was industrialized more or less, was Katanga because of the minerals, and Bakongo, could see the first one, Bakongo because of the port. So the eastern region was actually left out. And the Nandes, since the 70s, they said that we could not expect from the state to develop this country. So we need to take control of it. They developed, so their wealth mostly came from gold, which allowed them to have the first capital to start trading. But mostly in the 60s, or end of 90s, when the country was getting independent and the Congo was in political turmoil, many settlers, white settlers, especially the Greek, who owned plantations in this side of country, they left. And the Nande took over. And that was exceptional. They were very skilled in managing this plantation so that they actually created enough wealth to sustain the trade up to now. So, but what interested me is this slide's group of millionaires. So during my field work, I tried to study to understand how did they operate. It's what we can call now in the literature and sociology the trust network. These people are bound in a kind of trust contract. They work together, they know each other, every time they go out, they know who is where, what is doing, and when they come back, it's a very close group within the community, but they develop a very strong tie, which there's no written agreements, but this kind of bound by trust. I'll give you an example. One of the traders told me that in 2000, he needed money. He went to borrow $40,000 from another trader. And my first question was, oh, did you sign a paper? No, why? Why'd sign a paper? And 6 months later, he came with $40,000 and said, okay, This is our money. That's what they say in Kinani. This is our money. It means that, I mean, that I took it and then I give it. So we keep, I ask him, what would happen if you didn't pay? Is the man going to the court? Say, no, why? He will say nothing, and everybody will know that I didn't pay, and that will be the end of me. So there is this kind of a trust bound them, and mostly it gives them a kind of a power in the community. They are considered now the power brokers in the community. And when the state collapsed completely, these people took over, but in alliance with the Catholic Church who's running the healthcare centers and the university. There is a Catholic university which was running discontinuously despite the war in Congo. So with the Catholic Church and the traders are almost all of them Protestants because there are reasons behind them, and there are reasons why they trust the Catholic Church. I will not go inside this. So these people, what I understand, they managed to organize a kind of mini states with this alliance between the church, the traders, and the third group. When I was there, I thought that the third group was the state representative. There is a mayor in the city, but the mayor is a figurehead because there's no state. So the mayor completely depends on the traders and the church. But that's what I thought, that the third group was this state representative. But I was wrong. After 4 months, I found out that the third group is actually the militia, who are in charge of coercion power. Because what happened, these people had a lot of money, and all around them they were fighting. There were no state. So the question of protecting their wealth came about. How are you going to protect your business in a stateless situation where security is not a public good provided by the state? So the question came very soon. So each of these traders actually have a group of militia. He tried to arm and to protect, and every time you see a container of textile, you are 90% sure that there are some AK-47 for the militia to protect them. That's what actually is happening now. So what I found that is economically the militia look like the junior partners to the traders because there is a kind of contract, a bond between them and the traders. So the militia are provided by arms, and the trader, they provide protection to the traders. That's what's going on. And I hope it's transitionally until the DRC state could reconstitute and provide security for all of them. Because one of the questions, I asked is that, okay, you are trading, but trade is not a productive activity. If you want to create jobs, if you want to impact more the society, develop the society, you need to industrialize. The answer was the same to all of them, that yes, we want to industrialize. We don't want to import all these things from China. We can produce it there. Everything we buy in China could be produced here in Butembo. But the problem is the problem of security. One of them actually invested in a very small factory for cold drink. He invested $25 million for cold drink industry. But when Kabila came the first time in '96, the first thing they did is to destroy this factory. So that has remained for the traders in Butembo kind of fear. So you will put money and overnight it will disappear since there is no security. So now money is sitting in bank in Hong Kong principally. So they're waiting for the situation to have a kind of real security to invest. So that's why for now the solution is to have this militia. The militia actually protect the area. And I was struck because the rebels around, especially the Rwandan-backed rebel RCD, military, they are very strong, stronger than the militia. If they want to come there, they could invade, but they've never did it. They've never done it because The reason was historical. These militia are, I mean, people believe that they have kind of traditional power, that you could not kill them. They're called Mai Mai, the bullets never touch them. So this combined with the fact that the traders have a strong link with outside people, and they may use this link to actually to defend themselves. These are imagination. That's what people think why they've not been invaded. The rebels actually tried twice to invade Butembo. The first time, what happened was that I think the RCD rebel linked to Rwanda, they made a kind of public statement that the Nande traders are very rich because they were selling uranium to Al-Qaeda. That was to have the backing of the US. You could understand that time, Al-Qaeda and uranium. And so actually, for a while, the State Department believed that. And it was kind of a go-ahead from the US via the Rwanda to invade this place. But the Nande trader, by their contact, they sent somebody first in Rome, in Vatican, and here at the State Department to convince them that they are traders. They have never traded uranium. There's no uranium there. And I think one guy from the State Department went to Butembo to verify. And that's why they halted the invasion of the RCD. The second invasion was coming from up north with the rebel like Jean-Pierre Bemba, another rebel leader, was coming from Ituri down to Butembo. And he was stopped because actually he was very strong. He met no resistance at all. But he was stopped because the Nande found they actually completely made up a history that this guy was eating pygmies. So he was an anthropophage. All the newspaper internationally, it was published that Jean-Pierre Bemba was actually, during his campaign to overtake Butembo, was killing pygmies, not killing them, but eating them. So it made a huge publicity against Bemba, and he had to halt because the ICC introduced actually a so this was very, very intelligent from them. They knew that in the public arena, when you put anthropophage and the war and pygmy, it will make an effect. And actually it did. And people who were involved there are not small people. The Bishop of Butembo was involved in making that. And I actually interviewed him. He said that was the only strategy to stop this guy. It was impossible. He knew that there were money in Butembo. And the only way to get the money to invade Butembo. And we didn't, our Mai could not stop him. So that's all the matter. And so what I mean that there is this kind of, this elite, these traders are enmeshed, embedded in the community. The wealth actually completely dependent on the existence of this community. That's why they contribute in the development. And so, of course, the problem with the traders was that the embeddedness is good, but you need a space of autonomy to actually run against all the peasantry of the family structure, which are against capitalist development. So you have two spaces. One I call a space of engagement outside and the space of dependence. So both spaces work, they're trying to balance. Need of this space is actually overwhelmed because otherwise they asphyxiate. They need both this dependency outside and this dependency inside and this engagement outside. So they create the two space balance. That's what makes them actually very strong in the community in Congo. My interest in the Nande is also actually based on the fact that these people are from Congo, and they managed actually to create this mini-state, well-managed during the war. And now my hope is that they will move to the capital city when peace will come, and with this spirit of capitalist investment, they will change the whole thing. So here is a pre-industrialized situation where a group of elites have a huge impact because they are really embedded. It's a kind of homegrown elite and who have a special tie with the community. Each of these traders, every time there is a funeral, they have to go in the city. So they want to be part of the city. At the same time, you see them in Hong Kong, you see them in, now they're more going in Guangzhou, in China, and they have, so this kind of elite, that's what strikes me in comparison to what have happened with the black economic empowerment, which seems to me a kind of state-imposed elite which didn't manage to make the link with the majority of black. And I'll come down to that. So it's along this line of state involvement and elites embeddedness in a community, what even Peter Evans presents as the basis for a developmental state. So along this line, I will interrogate this policy of black economic empowerment. I think you are all aware of this policy. In '94, when the ANC took power in South Africa, the political arena changed completely. It was in the image of the rainbow nation, multicolored, politically. But the business community remained deracialized, remained racialized, mainly white. So the question for the ANC was how to create a group of black economic elite, which will be a force to lift up the rest of the black majority. So this is what the ANC wanted, to produce a kind of mixed elite, economic elite. But what happened is that if you see the black who benefited from the black empowerment policy, is first of all people who were involved in the fighting against apartheid, not necessarily the skilled people with who. That's the first thing. I will read what Randall kind of identified. He identified 5 groups. The first one are the activist capitalists recruited by corporation or appointed to guide parastatal, who are drawn from Robben Islanders, former leaders of internal anti-apartheid group. So this category constitutes what they call the comrade in business. So that's the first category. So, or the veteran of struggle. The second, educated exile. Those black South African from the post-1976 generation who, although not so well politically connected to the activists, have acquired education and experience overseas. That's the second group. The third group is, he called it the corporate sophisticates, have been recruited by the corporation under equal opportunity program. That's the second group. And the third group, the fourth group is what they call the consultant of change. So it's a combination of black skin with silvery tongues. They promoted themselves as helping white business to adjust political change. So that's it. And the fifth group is what they call the conference circuit champions, who, having emerged from black business organizations such as Black Management Forum, have established strong contact with the white corporate world. By and large, it seems that the black bourgeoisie's hold on the economy in South Africa is fragile. That's the point I want to make, is that now you have a group of elites, very empowered by the state, but disconnected from the rest, who are very rich. The idea is, I think, when you see is that maybe the ANC believed in the trickle-down economy. I don't believe in it, but I think that was the idea was that by having this group empowered by the state, they will have influence. They will pass on the black majority the skills to lift them up. But this did not work. This did not happen. That's the problem. Why it didn't happen, we could discuss during the Q&A about it. So now it looks like this group, it's a kind of, some people go so far to call them as a crony, group of crony, just who are interested in just self-enrichment, but not lifting up the whole black majority. Gumede, lastly, in his book, he said, he writes this: certain black have joined the moneyed class, but the gap between the white rich and the healthy nephew black cousins and the overwhelming black poor majority have become scarce. So the situation now is that, I mean, especially the last 2 weeks, you heard about the strikes by the state employees. The state wage was gone so down that people could no longer cope now. So it's really on the periphery. And that is the limit of democratization in a situation where you have a strong social expectation because of the legacy of inequalities. So so building a strong state, as South Africa is, a very strong state, is not a solution always to the developmental problem. That's what I put in the ad you've received. So I will just conclude to open the discussion, the conversation. My conclusion is that I wanted, by bringing these elements, I wanted to display the pitfalls of a kind of elite-centered development theory. The study have mapped out this tragically neoliberal path South African class formation have taken. So, and South Africa now is challenged. I mean, the risk is the big split within the alliance who fought the apartheid. You know that there's the Communist Party and the COSATU, the Union, and the ANC are the three alliances. So within the alliance, you have this tension between the more free market ANC and more or less communist COSATU. I think they all want the same thing, that the development of black South Africans to lift them up. But they took two different directions. Since the ANC is in power and took this kind of neoliberal direction, it seems that things may split at the end. So I brought developmental problems in the DRC are very strong indeed. But the Nande example showed us that unless the elite, economic elite, is really embedded within the community, it will be very, very difficult, no matter how rich they are, to impact on the whole community. I want to conclude by making sure that being understood. We have two different situations here. South Africa is a developed country. It's industrialized country where the black entrepreneur have very hard time to connect or to lift up or to transfer their skills to the black majority. Why in Congo we are still in a pre-industrialized society where a group of traders very much unmatched in the society trying to create a kind of a sense of development. And this will actually this comes down to what Peter Evans said. Peter Evans talked about Brazil, Korea, and Austria, but also about Kerala, the very in India. Kerala, if you define development by economic growth, Kerala is not developed in India. I don't know, those who have read Amartya Sen could see that. But the Kerala is developed in the sense that, in the sense of welfare, they have one of the highest life expectancy in the world. And they have one of the highest, I think, literacy in the world. So this is what I call development. It means that the increase of individual capabilities. This doesn't come with a strong state, but rather how much the elite, the economic elite, is embedded with the community. That was my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patience, for that fascinating paper. I think it's rare that in comparing South Africa and Congo, Congo comes out with certain advantages. So I think with that, we can open it up for discussion. I see a hand already back in the back. If you would please introduce yourself too before you ask your question.
Hi, my name is Gareth Rees. I'm with the Embassy of South Africa. Thank you very much. I was very interested to hear your comments. My question, or first of all, a comment. I think when it comes to the black economic empowerment policies and consequences of the policies, I think there's been too much emphasis placed on the thing of equity and ownership contained within the black economic empowerment policies. We should remember that there's things beyond just equity and ownership of companies and businesses in South Africa that look at empowerment deals in terms of skills, in terms of equity, in terms of management, in terms of representation on boards of corporations and things, as a general effort to try and change and transform the nature of the economy away from, as was previously mentioned, the white-owned, pale male type syndrome. But I think that I would actually disagree with the comment that BEE, Black Economic Empowerment, is a state-imposed elite. I would say that the elite that has arisen out of the policies has been one of an economic consequence and not through the policies themselves, because the ownership and equity requirements within the programs has basically led to companies selling off some of their equity to their preferred partners and their identified partners. And they've been funded through the banks and their identified and preferred people that they've lent the money to. So it's by no means a state-imposed elite. It is a consequence that has grown out of the policies because that is what the economy has actually led to. And so with that in mind, my question is more, to what extent do you see the black economic empowerment outside of equity and ownership? To what extent do you see the empowerment benefits having empowered people outside of just the equity and ownership? I hope my question's clear.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for the question. And I would like to name those who talk about black economic empowerment. They give you three names: the wealthiest figure in the Johannesburg finance circle, and the strong link to the states. I'll give the case they cite if Tokyo Sexuale, you know, that he's the former premier of Gauteng province. And Cyril Ramaphosa, indeed, was the ANC negotiator. And Patrice Motsepe, who is the brother-in-law to both Ramaphosa and one of the Mbeki's minister. So these are the three figures you hear, but I know you know about that. I mean, so when people talk about this black economic empowerment, these three figures come and you directly see the link with the states. And I think the new CEO of ESCOM now, it's so, and this idea of giving the state companies to black was really clear. And the South African government made it clear they do business only with companies which have black, not only from the top down, but preferably on the top. Let's say it is clear for when I was there, that's what I witnessed. Another comment I will make is that among the companies listed on the South African Stock Exchange, I think 1.6% are black companies. But these black directors are non-executive directors, actually. That's a sexual point in it. They are non-executive directors. They are kind of, they are directors, but they're kind of figureheads. I mean. But actually the government's target is, because now the proportion is 10% of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange ownership is on the hand of the black, but the target is to have 20% of ownership in 2014. That's according to Hash and other Goldberg research. So I think the perception is that there is a strong state involvement with these very rich people. I mean, it's, the question you ask is very interesting, because what I've seen that is what the kind of elites, black elites African have produced is mostly professional elite. You don't find really a business elite, traders elite. You should go to 19th centuries to find these train riders, these black farm owners who were actually who were doing accumulation in the capitalist system. And that's what happened in the pre-capitalist South Africa. But today, the elite which is produced is much more professional. And there is a confusion in South Africa between this black economic elite business and the affirmative action business. There's and in the affirmative action business, you will find blacks as owners of clubs, of drivers, associations. This small thing, but in terms of really capitalist, productive businessmen, you don't find them actually. And for me, I've been in South Africa, and there's the point I don't like is that what I found is that the white business community actually in the 94 disregarded the new government. They were kind of distrust, and that's where everything started. Where the white business community really engaged into this change, the political change you have, things would have been different. I don't know, that's my comment for now, but it's open.
More questions? Another one back in the back here?
Yes, my name is Jean-Louis Hikambana with the American Friends Service Committee. Patience, my question is, in this chaotic DRC, Katanga is also seen as a model of economic development. Have you observed any interaction between economic elites from both regions? That's number one. And number two, do you think that there are any chances that this so-called successful model in Butembo could be duplicated in other parts of DRC?
Thank you, Jean-Louis, for the question. I've made some parallel between the Nande traders and not the people from Katanga, but the Baluba in Kasai who have diamond. The difference is that the Nande invests home, but the Baluba invests outside. And this is related to the nature of wealth they have. That's what has been explained. As somebody who have diamond in Baluba have diamond in Central Kasai. So you just found a huge diamond you could sell for $2 or $3 million. Your relations to the community is not that strong. It's not that actually, it doesn't impose you to stay there. You just pick and go. But in Butembo, everything is organized with the community. You can't become rich without this web of relationship. So there are more tied to the community than the others. And another thing is that, as people say, when a Nande have $2 million, he will give you the impression that he only have $200 because he'll never go to the 4-star hotel, never. When they go to Kampala, they live in guest house like everybody. So, but when Muluba, that's the anecdote, have $2 million, he gave you the impression of having 10 million. I mean, that's the difference between the two. So, as I said, my hope is that I was stuck in Butembo, I was really surprised. Even women who have never been to school, when they've sold their vegetable, the first thing they will do is to transform the money they will earn into US dollars. So they know that hard currency is the way to keep money. So this is, you find it in the remote villages. When you ask the price of a tomato, they will tell you 2.5. I mean $2.5. So this mentality actually is not only among the elite. That's now the whole society is becoming like that. But the flip side is the mercantilization of this very traditional society. We have a joke. I mean, say 50 years ago, when you want to marry a girl in Butembo, the first question they ask you, who are your parents and where did you study? And today, the first question is, where is your shop? And when is your next trip to Dubai? So, it's kind of this transformation. But the idea is that I don't know to what extent we could transpose this to other regions. And the Nande, will they succeed in Kinshasa? There is a Nande now who have got a contract to build a city in Kinshasa. He repatriated his $40 million from Swiss bank into Kinshasa. He's trying to build new cities with the government contract. I don't know what we have, so that may change the mentality.
Questions?
Yeah, Charge and freelance correspondence. I have a comment both to you and 2 questions. I think you talk about that in this particular area, the success, I can generate in certain factor. One is you have resources there, and then you have a stability, and you have a mutual interest. Although you say this going well in a weak state, but I think in a strong state, is also could do lots better. Like here, question is South Africa, or you talk about South Africa, because they have a stability and resources, and also that I think the state could have doing very well to build a mutual trust, and also this is. If you have a new national policy, you want to empower this black elite, I think this can be well done, particularly if the state is strong. So I think in South Africa or in other places, like the second person talked about, I think the need is national policy, want to do it, and also most important is have a confidence building. That's a different group is have aim is to develop the national economy, and everybody share the wealth of the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I completely agree with you. That's the point I'm trying to make is that in South Africa there may be a wrong kind of state involvement in economy. That's the point I want to make, open to the discussion. And so you're right, the stability, resources, and within a strong state it may work. But my argument is that what is the end goal? The end goal is to improve individuals' capability. That's how I define development with Amartya Sen, indeed. So I see here, in the case of strong state, democratized state, people with less capability. It means that there are something to fix to fund the right national policy. So that's I completely agree with you. So it's yeah.
Question over here.
Thank you. It was interesting to hear you talk about Butembo and the militias and the private protection services that provide the stability for the community. One of the things that the DRC is really struggling with right now is how to get a unified military. And so this counters that tendency. But it also brings up the question, what was happening in Butembo with paying taxes? Private militias are, I don't know if they're more affordable or less affordable than what happens with national governments, but could you speak to that situation a little bit? Thank you.
Actually, the Mobutu state were not functioning even before its collapse completely. He didn't control the country. So this side of the country was completely autonomous, even starting in the end of 80s. So what happened in Butembo is that the traders have organized, for instance, toll gates. They will take money, and with this money, they will mend the roads. Before, when the state was there, the money was going to Kinshasa. So the money was going out. They was outsourcing the province for the capital. But now, the traders are accountable to not people, but to other traders, because each of them have 40 miles, around more than 50 kilometers of road. And if on this road things are not working, they will ask, what is going on? So there's this kind of organization. And about schools, there's a Catholic University of Graben, they call it. The school was built by the tremendous help of the traders. They built actually the classrooms, and the library actually was furnished by the traders. I remember the bishop told me that what he was doing is he will go with a list of 100 books to a trader, say, okay, during your trip to Dubai, if you have time, can you please bring me this? I mean, the trader would be proud to bring it, and you see 100 books, as the bishop have asked. So that's how they built the school. And in Congo, there was a wave of looting in the 90s. In Butembo, no building was looted because they were built by themselves. So that's make a big difference for me. I don't think that Butembo is an ideal situation. What we need is strong Congo, good national policy to lift up the whole majority of Congolese. But as an anthropologist, I was struck by this phenomena. I mean, because of this, the whole discourse of the state collapse, as if all the people have collapsed with the state, while the society is still alive and trying to imagine, to be imaginative, inventive for their lives.
Here and then here and there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, sir. You have Hunter H. Alexander. I'm with RTC Spectrum, a newsletter. I noticed in your experience list you were working in prisons from 1996, 1994, 1994, then again in 1990, and then again in 1987. What was it about prisons? Was it the opportunity to learn about these institutions, or were the libraries better in the prisons, or were they?
African, there's a critique of it, and one can see where the government will itself admit that that critique is valid, but that is what they can do. My question really goes to the interaction between the present central government in the DRC and the central government in South Africa. As you're aware, Thabo Mbeki has just been in the DRC. And so I'd like you to comment on that space, that meeting place between the South African government and its policies with regard to BEE as you see them, and where that meeting place between what you've described is happening in a microcosm of the society in the DRC, and how that's going to come together and what that interaction is going to mean in terms of, it seems like a big one in terms of the next 5 or so years. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think the interaction now is at the level of a government, and Thabo Mbeki actually have done a lot for the recent situation of the DRC to improve. And also, it's a level of the government. It's not actually people. And your question joined the remark here. In South Africa, there is room for trust. There is room for network. There is room for embeddedness of this elite. How to get there? What is the right national policy for that? I mean, it's because I think, I don't know, the idea of trickle down, I don't know what people think about that. I think it doesn't work. I mean, at least up to now, it didn't work, because the idea was to empower this small elite in order to have impact on the whole community. It will be the force which will lift up. That was the rationale. It's not bad. I mean, it sounds very intelligent. It's the whole Reaganism. I mean, but concretely, it doesn't work. Now you have to find a new policy more close to the people. And in terms of development, even the countries are, for me, I think Amartya Sen is the best theorist up to now on this development of capabilities. Because Sen was, when he began his study, he did a field work, I think, in Bangladesh. And in 1974, there was a big famine. And people were dying in front of shops full of food. In the UN rationale, that Bangladesh had enough food in terms of, I mean, aggregate food to feed his people. But that means nothing when you come to individual capability to buy food. That's what triggers Sen's theory, actually. It's how to empower individuals, to give them entitlement to what they need. That's
a question here.
My name is Alberto Tonini. I am a public policy scholar of the Western Europe program. And listening to Patience's presentation, I was having two different and contrasting feelings. On one side, I was glad to hear that people in Butembo were able to cope with the collapse of the central state and were able to survive and even to develop during the recent years, in contrast with the general situation in the country, so desperate. But on the other hand, I was thinking to a similar situation that occurred in my country, Italy, 1 century ago, when in southern Italy we have experienced a very similar phenomenon that you all know, that is called mafia. And you mentioned a lot of features that can be applied to mafia. You mentioned the weakness of the central state, and this was the case of Italy 1 century ago. You mentioned the closeness of this circle, people that are strongly linked together one each other, and this was a peculiarity of mafia too. And you mentioned the use of private militia to protect themselves and their interests.
the state were coming there to outsource the region, the province, rather than to invest and to develop the province. So now, if there is a new kind of state, first of all, you have to convince them that this is new. So it's the whole work of trust between them. And we are not there yet. We are not yet there, I think, for now. But I went back to Butembo after the elections. I went with one question to my millionaires. I told them, listen, we had the general elections now. So it means that the state will be restored. It's coming back. What do you think? Are you happy with this perspective that finally we'll have a normal DRC state? The answers were mixed. For the millionaire, the bigger trader, that's to say, that's good. It means that we'll have banks here. We could bring back our money. We could think of big projects, industries. That's good. But from people down who actually lives because they bypass many rules and they could sell cheaper on the market to make a small margin of interest, it's devastating to hear that the state will come back and they will pay taxes on the frontier, and that's so you have these two feelings, and that is normal actually in this kind of situation. Big traders like good, very strong organization, while small traders, which make the rest of actually the traders in Butembo are scared of this. But to your question, I say this will depend very much on what kind of state the DRC will bring to these people. I think they are ready if they see that their interest is saved. That for all businessmen, what they want is to have their interest saved. I don't know if I answered that.
I have a question here, I think.
Hello, Patience. This is Chris Kirkham with Bantu Consulting. I have a question for you. It's more of a what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And when you talk about the elite in South Africa with the BE program, is it the elite, is it the state, is it who's in control, or is it because you are elite, you help control some of the policies within the state which help you as an elite person? Whether you're in South Africa, Mozambique, Congo, wherever, they're always elite. So one could argue that it's not necessarily the state that's in control, it's really the elite, because they're going to be elite regardless if there was that policy in place. And so to push that further, is it more of the state should create additional policies that focus on small business development, which create additional employment for people and focus on engagement of civil society when you talk about Amartya Sen and the political process. And that will help empower and embed economic realities for the people on the ground, as opposed to just saying that there's a problem with the BE program. Maybe it just needs to be expanded and focus on small business development and other initiatives that, which will embed the economic reality. So I just want to know, what do you think, what are your thoughts about that?
Thank you, Chris, for the question. I think the history of South Africa told us that, in the 19, when Mandela was liberated, the whole ANC political leadership was actually ready to lead, to have the power. No? So what happened in 94 is that the ANC took over the political power, actually. But the economic elite remained very pre-94, very monocolored. So they had this problem whereby politically you have this rainbow nation, because the ANC is very mixed. And strong political leadership, deracialized, but economically you still have this very monocolor white economic community. So the ANC was facing this situation, so they wanted to change it. They wanted the economic arena to represent what the country was really. It's and I'll show you this 94. No. Yes. Yeah. This is 95, between 1917 to 1995. You saw the percentage of white income over the year. It was, if you compare to the rest, the colored or the Asians or the Africans, it's between 0 and 10. And the others is 100. So this situation have remained even after 94. So the ANC had to face this. And all the markets also was impregnated with the apartheid regime constraints. So the idea was not bad, but now how do you empower people? That was the ANC idea, was to go by neoliberal policies. Within the alliance, you have the Communist Party who was trying to go other way, and the union was in the middle. So it was actually, there was a big debate during that time. The ANC won the debates and they follow the neoliberal path. The result is that now I think things didn't change that much. That's what I think.
Question over here, I think. Yeah.
Well, my name is Jardo Makalia with MKL Associates. Part of the question was actually covered there, but I'll move to the next one. You mentioned, you talked of a risk of a rift within the alliance. I was wondering whether you have in mind a specific event or a specific moment in this process that might trigger such a rift.
Yeah, the specific moment will be when the ANC could not deliver what they promised, what people are expecting, kind of development. You see all this Ashanti town with a million of people. I mean, it's kind of crazy urbanization. That's all these are fueling. I mean, in South Africa now, people are still waiting the ANC to provide what they promised, I think. And up to when, the wait, that will depend. No. I think if there is no split in future, there will be something. There'll be a new liberation, maybe. Why not?
We'll sit over here, way back in the back.
Thank you. My name's Julio Yegun. I'm with the World Bank, not in operations, in HR, but I used to work in South Africa. I actually worked on employment equity. And it seems to me that it would be more useful to talk about black economic employment in a broader context, not just the equity and ownership, but also the capacity building and skills development, which I think is what will build a critical mass that will make demands of the state beyond pure elitism. And I think there's a bigger scope for that in a stable state like South Africa than there is in the DRC, where what you're describing seems to be very, very unique. I don't feel that you answered the question as to whether it's replicable. You also haven't addressed the issue of whether it's sustainable. And I don't think you've addressed fully the issue of whether it will respond to democratic change. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think these are very important issues. I think you have to look at the South African issue in a broader context beyond ownership of companies, even board membership. I think you have to, I used to work in the university system, I think you have to look very seriously into the issue of, are you developing skills? Are you building capacity? Are you building a middle class? Is there a potential for that to happen? And then compare with the DRC, with what is a very unique and very special situation, which may be, may have, I don't know, aspects of the mafia. I don't know if it has the criminal nature of the mafia, which we assume is the mafia. But I think you do need to address the issue of replicability, of sustainability, and its ability to respond to democratization. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And what I've noticed actually about the black economic empowerment, that's why I brought it here, is that it didn't answer the question of uplifting or diffusing the skills and the wealth. That's the biggest problem. I mean, it is, and that's why it was actually the first. It replaced the former, I think, RDR revolution. I have it something, but sorry. RDP. Yeah, RDP. The idea was actually that this force, these people will empower, will transfer, diffuse their skill to just bring about all our majority. The idea was not bad actually, but the way it was done, that's the biggest problem. The idea was that that was the biggest surprise. All the fighting of INC, it was social justice, it was for equality. It was a kind of more or less social leftists, but once in power, Mbeki is very intelligent. For me, it's one of the best we have in Africa. He saw that we are in this era of liberalism, so they took this decision. So it's, I agree with you that the most focus should be on the skills, capability building. But how is it done? How now? And I mean, the BBA maybe have still, the Black Economic Empowerment have future, and his future is reaching this capability, trying to improve this capability by improving the skill, by uplifting. That's what. About replicability and sustainability. Replicability will depend on, because this is a special context of the Nande. I agree with you. They are on the border with Uganda. So, and what I didn't say is that in the Ugandan side, you have the same ethnic group. You have the Nande. So it means that the linguistic problem is solved. You could go through the frontier. So there's very specificity of this northeastern Congo, which you will not find other places. But what could be replicated is the value of the work of these people and of the money. As I said, these people, even in a remote village, they will not keep money on Congolese currency. But they know that it's not value. They will so it's, I think business is more an art and something you carry with you, and it's this talent may help the Congolese. So my idea is that the Nande should leave northeast and go to Kinshasa and go other provinces. The way of doing business may affect the others. That's what I think. The sustainability issue, that was the main question of my supervisor. How long will this last? But it's going on since the 70s. The first anthropologist who went there is Janet McGarvey. She was there in the 80s, and she wrote about the Nande entrepreneur as the new capitalist of the Congo. So this is going on since the 80s. And it's very much depends on the kind of state which is dominated in the DRC. As long as the DRC will remain a kind of predatory state, these people will keep their independence. The new constitution talked about decentralization. That, for me, may be a path for the DRC where each region could reorganize, produce its wealth, redistribute its wealth, and try to organize with, indeed, trying to balance with other less endowed regions, those who don't have gold, try with a state who could balance that. So that's where I see the DRC hope in this decentralized, controlled decentralization.
We have lots of questions as we're running out of time. I see one here on the corner.
My name is Fidel. I'm from Congo and from civil society. I want to make two comments. One on what Patience was describing on the Nande people. I think the issue of replicability of the culture of Nande is not the question, because you have the same spirit all over Congo, where people are trying to make an effort to survive, where the economy and the government have collapsed. But what is specific in Nande people is just, you go way back in 8th century, because this part of Congo started trading with Asia way in 8th century, where they knew already the ocean, Indian Ocean. They were already trading there. But now the problem with the Nande is also the question of identity. The way they see the world outside of them as compared to the way other Congolese see the world outside them. The Banande are more communal people. The kinship comes first. The us versus them is strong to Banande people. It's us. The them doesn't exist for them. And we as other part of Congo, we talk about we as Congolese. Whereas the Banande is us as Banande, them doesn't exist, we doesn't exist. So it's easy now when you take this kind of identity formation to a group who apply their first identity to the economy, that for them as Nande, the first person to help is another Munande. The first space to develop is Butembo. And you see that even for those who knew, Malumalu, who was our who organized the election in Congo, is Munande, he's from this tribe. And is the financial manager of our National Commission for Election, was working here in US for 17 years. But when Malumalu was leading the National Commission for Election, he took this guy from US who had a well-paid job to join him at the National Commission for Election to be his accountant. So you can see, this guy has spent 17 years here. But when Malumalu needed someone to protect the money and lead the country to election, he thought first of all to another Munande, not another Congolese. And his spokesperson was also another young man who was in South Africa studying. He brought him back to join him and work together. So he became more strong because around him, he was just surrounded by other Banande, well-skilled, but who knew the philosophy of us being strong and not we as